Those of you staying in here, let's take our Bibles and let's head over to Titus. Titus chapter 2. While others are walking out, let's see what we have for input here this morning. See where we're going. Name a popular food that people barbecue. Ribs. Brisket. Yeah. What else? Steak. Anything else? Pastor Binkley, your most favorite food in the whole world. What do they barbecue? Oh, hot dogs. Absolutely. His favorite is hot dogs. Here's what they said. Corn on the cob, shish kebab, sausages, ribs, hot dogs, chicken, steak, and number one answer. Yeah, it's burgers. There you go. Name, what are some of your favorite summer veggies? Corn? Ah, there you go. There you go. Here's what they said. Squash, zucchini, cucumbers, tomatoes, and number one was corn. Name something you make sure you take with you when you go camping. Marshmallows? Matches? Bug spray? A tent? You need something, right? Anything else? Yeah, here's what they said. Camp, stove or grill, marshmallows, food. That's a good thing to take food when you go. Flashlight, bug spray, sleeping bag. Number one was a tent. What is the worst thing about summer? Humidity, heat. What'd you say? The bugs? Okay. Here's what the survey said. Summer storms, that happens. It ends too fast. It's too short. Sunburns, humidity, mosquitoes and bugs, and number one was the heat, too hot. Name a popular place where weddings take place. Not a town necessarily, could be, but a place, could be building. What'd you say, a barn? Yeah, there's your suggestion right here, barn. Okay. Church? Any other place people do weddings? What's that? Las Vegas? That's going to be up there, by the way. Okay. What's that? A park? Yeah. Yeah, here's what they had. Backyards, Las Vegas, City Hall, courthouse, historical building, park or garden, beach, and number one answer where churches take place. You know what the answer is, okay? Where weddings take place? Church would be your number one. So we're talking about weddings, marriage. We're headed to Titus. We have been talking about different commandments for marriage. So we've been talking about not being selfish, cutting the apron strings, good talks, doing your part. And we've been in this one for a couple weeks, and it's based on Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21 and following, where it says, submit yourselves one to another. And then right after that, it takes off talking about wives and husbands in specific different commands. And the word submit means to take your place, to fill in your spot, to do what you're assigned to do, to meet your assignment. And so our talk has been, okay, what in Ephesians 5 and beyond are the assignments that are given to the husbands and to the wives in particular. We've talked about, so I'm not going to elaborate, but the wives were given two specific areas that they were supposed to work on. Do you remember what they were in Ephesians chapter 5? First one was, wives, blank to your husbands. Submit. Okay, so that one being submissive, letting him be the leader. Do you remember what the other one was at the end of the chapter? Reverence. Okay, the idea of being respectful towards him, and we talked about that. So we go a step further and we say, okay, what was given in this text about husbands? They were to lead their wives, because that idea, if they're supposed to follow, the men have to be leading. What else were men told to do? Okay, to love their wives, okay? And there's several times in the text it talks about husbands loving your wives. So we have those that we've talked about. Let's pick up another one. Now we're in Titus 2, and in Titus 2 he's talking about the older woman teaching the younger. And if you jump down to verse 4, have the older woman teach the young woman to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. We ended up last time just talking about this, that many people say, well, nowhere in the Bible does it say ladies are to love their kids because it's so automatic. Ladies are just nurturers by nature, therefore there's never a command. That's not true. You can see right in this text, there's a command to learning to love. And by the way, loving kids is a learned trait because it's got to be taught, as well as loving your husbands. And so this idea of love isn't the same, but it is the same, but it isn't the same as husbands love your wives. The reason I say that is this. Okay, in this text, notice these different thoughts about wives loving their husbands. Number one, this is for all wives to work on. The older are to be teaching the younger one. They can't teach something they're not doing themselves. So it's for all wives. Number two is this, it's a learned behavior, how to love your husband. Some of you say, oh yeah, it's really learned because it's just really something hard to do. And it takes practice, and it does. The word that's used here is different than the word that is used in Ephesians 5 for husbands, love your wives. This word is used phileo, okay? And anybody have an idea? They both translate love. Do anybody have an idea of what's the difference, if there is a difference between agapao and phileo when it comes to love? What's that? One of them more like? Yeah. You're right on the same spot, Mike. That's excellent. Mike was saying is one more of an emphasis on liking the person as opposed to the emotional aspect, and that's what it is. The agapao is great commitment, compassion with commitment. This one is more of friendship, liking the person. You can love somebody but not like them. Yay, nay? Okay? You can like somebody and not love them. It goes both ways. And this is the idea that, ladies, you're to work on this idea of developing a friendship with your husband. How do you do that? Let's rephrase that. Let's ask this question. What are hallmarks, what are indicators of a real friendship? How would you describe a real friendship? You have a real close friend. What's there? Spending time together? Sharing what? Sharing emotions, okay. Okay. What's that? Talking. I mean, you have that with the phileo love, with the agapao love, but with your friendships, you have those other aspects that are there that we could talk about. This idea, delighting in somebody. Okay, a friend is somebody you really want to be with, right? You know this is true. You have different levels of friendships, yay? No, yes? Am I the only one in this room that has different levels of friendships? Okay, some people are an acquaintance. Some people, you would have fellowship with. And then there's a whole different level of people that you do what? You what? Like your inner circle. What do you do with those people? That's different than somebody you come and shake hands with here. There's more of an intimacy? Okay. Does it go back to more of that sharing? Yes? Okay, hanging out. You probably hang out with some people more than you would here with others. Yes? No? And you do things with, and if you had a real problem, what would you do? Who would you run to? Those people? Or somebody you just know who sits across the auditorium from you? The ones that you would go to would be the confidants. That's what we're talking about, is delighting in somebody where you're thinking positive about that person. You want to be with them, you value them, you like that person, you enjoy with them, and you share with them. Okay, you're doing things together. And this is contrary to what's happening in our country anymore, in our society. Is husbands and wives, especially many of us who have been married any length of time, what can happen in our lives when it comes to doing things together? What can happen when kids come into the play? When work gets into the play? Can you start going like this more and more? And instead of, there are some couples when we talk and say, you guys need to do a date. Why? We're already married. Okay? And so when they said, I do, in their mind, dating was done. There's no longer any type of just, let's get together and let's do some things. And so he's telling the wives, work on this one. Wives, try to instigate this one where you are enjoying doing things. Some of you may have this been your life experience. I remember one couple here, just sweet, godly people, and they shared years ago, that when they were dating, he would drive a distance to go and play tennis with her on Friday nights at her campus. He just wanted to spend time. And then they joked about it and said, I ran more outside the court than I did inside the court, chasing after the balls that she was hitting outside. And then they're talking about this, and then she paused and says, you know what? We haven't played tennis since we got married. He says, I know. There was a reason for it. Okay, so sometimes it shifts for us. Sometimes things we did just not because we liked doing them, we did them for what reason? We just wanted to be with that person, spend time with them. Okay, wives, he's saying, here's the thing to do. Sometimes spend time, share some interest with them. Do some things and work on this one, showing an interest in what he's interested, showing that you want to be with him. And this time he targets. Now, he's going to talk about the husbands in just a moment, but this one he's targeting the wives. Then what happens, okay, is he talks to the ladies. I'm going to have you go to 1 Peter 3. He's going to give another area that's really developed here. Let's go to 1 Peter 3. You want to turn there? This one is more in depth. And he's talking in 1 Peter 3 to both husbands and wives, and we're going to spend the bulk of our time right here in this text. And he's going to talk about ladies making themselves attractive to their husbands. And in particular, in this passage, he's going to talk about two areas. Look at 1 Peter chapter 3. Now, catch this sense of it. Likewise, you wives, be in submission to your own husbands. We've already talked about that. That if any obey, and especially if you have an unsaved or a backslidden spouse, that if they obey not the word, they may be won to the Lord. How? By the conversation, by your lifestyle, not your preaching, not your nagging, not your pinning tracts to everything, putting in between the sandwiches, and pinning tracts to his socks and underclothes. Okay, he's saying that's not how you're going to win them. You're going to win them, and in the King James it says by the conversation. You have different translations. What do you have? What do you have for a different word for that there may be won by the conversation of the wife, that last phrase? Anybody have what do you have? Conduct. It's lifestyle. It's not words. It's how you conduct yourself. And so he goes on and he talks about how to conduct yourselves, in particular ladies, while they are beholding your chaste or pure conversation coupled with fear, whose adorning outward, let it not be the outward adorning or the plaiting of the hair, the wearing of gold, the putting on of apparel. What's plaiting of hair? Braiding? Is it wrong to have pigtails, to have braids? No, what's he talking about back in those days? What did people do? Their hairdo styles would do what? Very ornate, and just, make it really something that, man, you had to duck to get through the doorway. Okay. Something that was very elaborate. And he's saying, ladies, I'm not saying that what you're doing to do is to win this guy by your elaborate appearance on the outside. And he says, okay, some of you, what you're focusing on is the plaiting of the hair. Some of you are focusing on what? What's the next phrase here in that verse, verse 3? What are some ladies doing? Wearing of what? Jewelry. Okay, so here's what you've got. You've got groups in our area that say this verse forbids cutting your hair. Here's a verse for it. Can't cut your hair, ladies. And it says you can't wear jewelry, because the wearing of jewelry in this passage is supposedly condemned. If you are holding to that position of interpretation, then what else you should never do? What's the last phrase? And the what? Wearing of clothes. Okay, this isn't a prohibition against those things. What is the prohibition? Too much emphasis. There you go. Okay, worrying all about the outside and then doing what? Forgetting about the inside. Yes, you got it exactly. Where he goes on, he says, okay, your adorning isn't supposed to be all this outside extravagant stuff, but let it be what? Verse 4. The inner man, the inner woman, the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a what type of spirit? What do you have? A meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God what? Great price or great value. For after this, and then he uses the example. Taking that verse, okay, here's what you got. You've got two areas that the ladies are supposed to make themselves attractive to their spouse, to their husbands. Let's deal with the first area first. The first area is make yourself attractive via your speech and attitude. Via your speech and attitude. how you sound, how you conduct, how you respond, your tone, your treatment of him in this way. In other words, these are the things that would be condemned in Scripture. Not the nagging. Don't always have to have the last word. Okay? Don't put down time and time again that he can never do anything right. My mother was right, she said, she warned me about you. Don't name call, I should have married somebody else. I should have listened to my mother. Those things will not draw him to you. They will push him away. They're going to push him away. Okay. Earl was sharing with me a little thing. He says that I think my wife has started to show the first signs of dementia. She says she can't remember what she ever saw in me. Okay, that's it's humorous, but it sometimes isn't so funny. When we start reading in Proverbs, we know that speech is very important. And what's really interesting, he talks a lot about speech for all of us, but he really belabors the idea of ladies being careful of your speech, especially wives. Okay? And the reason he says an excellent wife is the crown of her husband. Okay? She will help build him up, and she will be considered very valuable in his eyes. But she who shames him, it says rottenness in the bones. He goes on in Proverbs, it is better to live in a desert, which we would understand, dangerous wasteland, than in a house shared with a brawling, cranky, crabby woman who's never happy, who's never satisfied. He says this as he goes through, a constant dripping on a day of steady rain and a cranky woman are both alike. What's he mean by that? What's that constant dripping? Yeah, every so often we have this, okay, and I heard it the other night. We're in bed, we're sleeping, and all of a sudden I woke up because of some sound, and usually I don't hear anything. But I heard this plunk, plunk, plunk from the shower. And it's like, I don't want to get out of bed and check the shower faucet. And if you've ever been there, maybe you do this, maybe I'm just the weird one. But the more I don't want to hear it, the louder it gets. Okay, and it's just like, plunk, plunk. And I kicked her, and she still didn't get up to go and take care of it. Okay, so he's saying, and then he goes on, he says, to restrain her is like, this is really cool how he said, is like trying to stop the wind or grab a whole handful of oil. Isn't it interesting how he's saying, in other words, he's saying, this type of woman, to stop her from complaining, it's what? It's impossible. Because her attitude is such that she's never, ever happy, satisfied, things of that sort. Okay, it is better to live in the corner of the roof, you and I would say today, it's better to live in the attic, where it's hot in there, than in a house shared with a cranky woman. The wise woman builds her house, but the foolish tears it down with her own hands, and I added, usually with her mouth. So in this text, he's saying in 1 Peter 3, he's saying, ladies, make yourself attractive to your spouse. How? And he's targeting ladies in this text here at this moment, with a meek and quiet spirit, which in the sight of God is great price. He's not saying you can't talk. He's not saying you can't share, but he's saying be careful your attitude, how you say it, what you say. Okay, let's do this. Okay, in Little House on the Prairie, how did they portray Mrs. Ingalls? Was she a cranky, crabby woman? No, yes? No. Typically, she would be the type of woman that would be, the way they portrayed her, she would fit into this. Okay, now I want you to catch a couple words here that are really, really, really important. Put on a meek and quiet spirit, which in the sight of God is great treasure. The passage is dealing with this reality. It's dealing with the reality that inner beauty is superior to what you do on the outside. The woman's inner beauty is more attractive to the husband and to God than even dolling herself on the outside. Can somebody be the best looking knockout in the world, but be a woman that you don't want to get near? Yes? Okay, so he's talking about that, and he's not condemning. He's not saying you can't wear jewelry, plait your hair, or wear clothes, but he's saying before that gets so much attention, fix attention on how do you sound? Some of us, and this goes both ways, okay, but in particular he's talking to ladies, but it goes both ways. Sometimes we don't even know how we sound. Yes? No? Okay, here's what happened in my home when we were raising the kids. And I'd be talking to the girls in particular would respond this way. And I would be they would be sharing something, and I would say, you just can't do that. I'd say it about that tone, that way, and one of my girls would go, stop yelling at me. I'm not yelling at you. If you want me to yell at you, I can do that. But I'm just being firm. But in her mind, how did she interpret it? Okay, she took it as I'm being loud. Sometimes I wonder if when we're parenting and they're little kids and we don't get their attention because they're preoccupied with the commercials, okay, and they're not hearing us, what do we revert to? We raise our voice. And after a while, what does it become? It becomes we start communicating at that level, decibel level, in all areas. And we don't even realize that we're sounding loud, angry, harsh. And he's saying, be careful of this. Be very careful. I think it goes both ways, but I wonder if he's not targeting the ladies, because the ladies are the ones who are doing most of the nurturing with the kids. And so as a result, they have to be careful that their speech doesn't become a habit of all of a sudden looking at that child and go, Wayne Anthony Burggraff, when you use the three names together. And all of a sudden it comes across to the spouse the same way. And so he's warning, and I want you to catch it. This is a really important thought. Inner beauty not only appeals to men. This is a general truism in this text. It not only appeals to men, but who else does it appeal to? To God. To God. Your self-control in your speech is really, really critical. Now, in looking at this, in particular, he's going to say there are several traits that you really, really focus on. Okay, watch what they are. In verses 1 and 5, in your meek and quiet spirit, what is he putting it down into day in and day out? What is he asking the wives to do to show this meek and quiet spirit? What activity or action do you find in verse 1? Wives, be in blank to your own husbands. Send verse 5, being in blank unto your own husbands. What meek and quiet spirit? How does this show up in your life? What word did I drop off? Be in submission. Be in submission. So this right attitude, he starts off, the right attitude is going back to Ephesians 5, that I am going to be respectful and follow the leadership. And so I'm going to speak in a way that I would in a respectful way to somebody who has authority. Okay, and again, we talked about this. She calls him Lord. That doesn't mean you have to bow down and call your husband master, but it's speaking to somebody who God has put in authority. Verse 2. What's the outworking of this? If you are worried about the inner person, what type of, verse 2, what type of conduct is going to show up? What's the adjective there? While they behold your what type of conduct or conversation? I have chaste. What do you have? What's that? Okay, so it's that idea of, we understand the words, that idea of being pure, being respectful, speaking with holiness in your life. Verse 4, he's talking in verse 4 and saying, ladies, that which is the ornament, the meek and the quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God, the gentle and quiet spirit. Okay? It doesn't mean you can't have opinion, you can't have firmness, but at the same time, it's not the screaming and yelling and out of control. It's not the anger and the upsetness that all of a sudden, can be blaring. Verse 6, he has, even as Sarah called him Lord, etc., the respectful speech to the husband. These are the specifics that he's given in this text, showing that meek and quiet spirit. Now, some of you, let me see if I remember this right, okay? These treats, some of you will say, well, if I do that, I'm going to be like a doormat. That shows me as being really weak. Look at the text. The woman who can do this is not a weak woman. She is the stronger of women. Stronger because she has self-control. Stronger because Look at the phrase that he says, where he puts this, I'm trying to catch it real quick, down in verse 6. Whose daughters you are, as long as you do well, and are not afraid with any amazement. It's kind of a strange rendering of it. This whole attitude of self-control and, let me put it up here. This calls for a very strong person. As long as you do well and do not fear anything that is frightening. Do you know what could be frightening in this text that he's talking about? You have an unsaved husband in the specifics of the text. You have an unsaved, backslidden husband. If I am respectful towards them, if I am maintaining self-control, if I am focusing on the inner person, they might take advantage of me. They might not treat me well. And he's saying, no, what you need to do is you do what I am asking you and commanding you to do without any fear. You trust me. You do what's right, and I will bring the conviction. I will bring him. This does not call for a weak woman. What does it call for? A very strong woman, that she is self-control while trusting the Lord and not trying to change or create situations more to her liking. And she is saying, I got to leave it in the hands of God. That takes great strength. And so in this passage, he's talking about that, but he also alludes to the idea of there's another area to make yourself attractive. It's your appearance. It's your appearance. Now, he's saying don't make it your primary focus, but he's not saying it won't be your focus at all. What he's talking about in this passage is, we don't forget about the outer appearance, the plaiting of the gold, the wearing of the plaiting of the hair, the wearing of gold, or the apparel. That we just kind of we're going to be frumpy all the time. No, that's not what he's advocating. He's advocating work on the inner man, but as well be careful on the outer man, and make sure that you're maintaining a physical attractiveness to your husband. Because this world has a lot of physical attractiveness being thrown out there at the men. Yes or no? Okay, you need to maintain a physical attractiveness yourself. It's not your priority, but it should be your concern. Okay? And legitimately so. In fact, there's passages like this one. 1 Timothy 2, talking to the ladies in the church. And he says, women, adorn yourselves. This is the passage that some say that the church should establish dress standards for the home and for every other time. They should have dress standards, and ladies should only wear certain colors, certain length sleeves, et cetera, and churches develop this, and they're telling the ladies this is what is biblically mandated. I have a contention with that. I think we should talk about standards. I think as an institution, we can have dress standards if we want. That's our choice. But I want you to catch the third word here. Actually, the second and third word. Who has the responsibility for determining how they dress? The woman. Woman, adorn yourselves. God says, I want you to adorn yourself in a way that is appropriate. What is appropriate? Modest, shamefacedness, and sobriety. What do those words mean? Those are words that are in our English translations. You might have a different one. Let me take you back to the original language, and not to wow you, but to make sure you understand exactly what he's talking about. What he talks about in modest is well-arranged, looks good, suitable for the occasion. Some occasions you're going to dress different than you would at others. Okay? Some occasions you're going to wear what is suitable. Okay? What is fitting, which is well arranged. The word for shamefacedness is that idea of something that is dignified, respectful to yourself and to your spouse. It's not the idea of, I got to show off what God has given me physically. This is the word more so for us where we talk about that idea of modesty. The second word has more of that in our modern day terminology. Being careful of what is being revealed. And I wish I wish moms would teach young girls how to be modest in their summer wear. Because it's really, really uncomfortable to say something to the young ladies at camp, on missions trips, to have to say, listen, that is really inappropriate. It's very tight. It's very revealing. And a lot of what we get back is, oh, Mom said it was fine. It's like, eesh. And you see the boys just staring where they shouldn't be staring. Okay? And the third word, sobriety, means what fits you well. I don't understand this. Okay? You ladies understand this. I don't. But I understand certain styles are more appropriate for different body. How do I say this? Body sizes. You understand what I'm talking about? Certain ladies can't wear the same thing that other ladies wear, right? The cut, the pattern. You know, certain ladies shouldn't be wearing some things that looks like they were poured into it. Okay? They should wear things that are more suited to their body size and nature. That's what that third word means. You pick clothes that fit you. Years ago, there used to be that thing that was, maybe some of you are familiar, Color Me Beautiful, was that the name of it? Anybody remember this? Where they taught young ladies what colors go with their makeup. Yes, no? Okay, you understand? I don't have a clue, okay? But I remember hearing of these things, that these were things that, you know, that certain styles go with certain faces and looks and skin tone. The same thing, certain clothes. And that's what he's saying to the ladies. What he does in 1 Corinthians 11 is really interesting. 1 Corinthians 11 is that passage that's talking about the veil. Okay? Are you familiar with this at all? Where he talks about the ladies wearing a veil in public? Does it ring with any of you at all? Do you know what the text I'm talking about? In 1 Corinthians 11, he's talking about wearing a veil for the ladies and not dishonoring their head by not wearing the veil and covering their head or not covering their hair. And he's using head in two different ways throughout the text. What he's talking about at the very beginning of that text is he talks about the head of Christ is God. The head of man is Christ. The head of the woman is the man. Okay, so keep that in mind. Where he talks about later in the text dishonoring your head, that dishonoring head isn't dishonoring yourself alone, it's dishonoring who? Your husband. Okay, so being careful what you wear in public, how that might reflect upon your husband. And what was happening in 1 Corinthians is the ladies were getting saved. And as they're getting saved, they're hearing the Bible preached. And it's true. The Bible was being preached that there is no difference between slave and free, male, female, Jews, and Gentiles. And the ladies were hearing this. And they were saying, wait a minute, in Christianity, there is no distinction between the husband and wife. We are all loved by Christ equally. Would you agree with that? He died. Who does he value more, men or ladies? Okay, the answer is both. Yeah, neither is valued more. They're both valued the same. And so ladies were saying, back in a culture where ladies were definitely put down, all of a sudden Christianity was doing what with the ladies? It was elevating the ladies. All of a sudden they were no longer dirt or without any type of abilities. They were being elevated like queens, like never before in Christianity. And so some of them, like we have in our own country, that when some people say, hey, listen, we're equal, therefore, if we're equal, there's certain governments, there's certain societies, we're equal, but I'm a little bit more equal than you, type concept. And so what was happening is the ladies were all of a sudden saying, we're equal, but this means I'm a little bit more equal than you. I don't have to submit the way the society told me to my husband. I don't have to do certain things anymore because in the church, we're the same. There was truth to that. But then he says to the ladies, wait a minute. This is the text that he says, ladies, be what in the church when it comes to volume? Be silent. Don't argue. If you have a question, ask who? Ask your husband. And he's trying to hold down what is happening. There was a women's right movement that took off within the church. And in America, some of you don't remember this, and excuse me for being crass about it, but do you remember back in the 70s, in late 80s, 60s, the women's right movement, a lot of ladies, they had these whole things where they would all of a sudden start things on fire, and the ladies would burn their bras to show that we are independent. We are, we're no longer, going to be put down. Back in Corinth, they were burning their veils. In the church, they were taking off their veil, and because the veil was a cultural thing showing females, a little bit subordinate to the men typically. And so the ladies were getting rid of the veil. The ladies who typically didn't wear a veil in Corinth were what ladies in public? It was the prostitutes. So if the Christian woman here is in church and she's saying, I'm equal with my husband, I'm going to take off my veil, when she walks out of the church, what does she appear like to the people in the street? She appears like a prostitute. And she was dishonoring who? Her husband, Christ, everybody. And so what he is saying in this context, he's saying, listen, you are of equal value. But in your equal value, there still needs to be an order of what's the word we used before? A submissive order, an order of who's in charge. And he's going to say the men are still in charge, and if you get rid of your veils, you're going to be ruining your testimony. You can't do that. And so he's talking about the ladies being careful how they dressed with the veil back at that time. And so what happens is God was concerned, and I find this very interesting because I hear this all the time. People say, well, God doesn't care what I wear. Yes, he does. He talked about it. He talked about you got to be careful that you don't ruin your testimony by what you wear or don't wear. Isn't that an interesting concept? Okay. You got to be careful about what your testimony is saying about your husband, people around about you, your family. So they were still to maintain that which is in that culture modest and appropriate. That went the extra mile for the Christian woman to say, I am going to maintain this testimony for the cause of Christ, and I do not want to dishonor my husband. Point is that if you're going to apply this, dress in a way that honors your husband. Dress in a way that he appreciates. Dress in a way that he looks and says, that's great. But again, guys have to have common sense that you don't need to show off your wife, to other men. Men, you understand that. You understand when you have teenage daughters, men typically understand, daughter, you can't wear that. And the daughter goes, why not? Because I know how guys think. You shouldn't be wearing that. And the girl goes, well, I don't know why guys think that. And you could look at her and say, that's just the way it is. Okay? So you got to dress more modest than that. Okay? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay. It's all based on biblical principle. That you got to be careful in your attire for testimonies, and he's targeting women. Why is he targeting women and not the men? Is there an answer to that one? Who's the issue when it comes to dress? It's mostly the women, because us men, men go to Walmart in their pajamas. I don't understand that one either. Okay. Here we go. So a wife should be in love with her husband, should make herself attractive. So you ask yourself, in the same text, he talks about men. Look what he talks about the men. They're supposed to lead, love. In this text, look what he tells the men to do. He says, right down in verse 7, likewise, you husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge. What's your next phrase read? It's in your Bible. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Likewise, you husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto who? Unto the wife. Okay, let's tear it apart. This is what he's telling men to do. Giving honor unto your wives as the weaker vessel. There's so much here. There is so much in this. What does it mean to give honor? I mean, guys, we'll be working on this. What's he want you to do? What's that? Lift him up? Oh, you picked my word already. Okay. How do you do that, Sam? Somebody's respect? Compliment? Okay. What? Who said it? Treasure? Okay. What else? Somebody said something? Yeah. What's that? Communicate. Okay. The word that's used here, go back to chapter 2, verse 7. I think I've got this right from memory. This is about going by memory. This is dangerous. Okay. Go back to chapter 2, verse 7. And in the middle of chapter 2, verse 7, he's talking about, unto you therefore which believe, Jesus Christ is something. He doesn't say Jesus Christ, it's he is. What do you have in that phrase? I have precious. What else do you have? Nothing? Precious? It's the same word, tamao. Just as you consider Christ precious and something that's valuable, you're supposed to consider your wife as something really valuable. I mean, you have to ask yourself, how do I think of Christ? Do I elevate him in my mind? Do I appreciate him in my mind? Have that same attitude towards your wife. Woo, that's tough. And he goes on, he says, in this passage, it's not a command. It's a participle which literally reads this. It would read in verse 7 of chapter 3, it says, likewise, you husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, while giving honor unto your wife. That to me is more emphatic than a command. Why? He's assuming you're doing it. God is assuming that you're elevating your wife, that you're lifting her up, which is really a potent. He says, I don't even have to command you to do this. This is something that should be just flowing out of you already. And so he then goes on, he says, by the way, do this, honor her, while considering your wife as the weaker vessel. What does he mean by that? Why is he calling wives the weaker vessel? Okay, definitely God is not transgender. Pro-transgender, I said that kind of wrong. What's it mean? Giving honor unto, what's he mean by calling wives, woman, the weaker vessel? What do you think is the possibilities here?
Well, it could be Adam and Eve.
Okay. Weak in which way then?
Well, she got tempted.
She was tempted, she was tricked more than he was. Okay. So by which way is he comparing ladies are weaker than men? Which way, in what ways? Okay, what'd you say? Is it emotion? Emotion? Okay. What other possibilities? Is there the possibility that in a sense ladies are physically weaker than men? Is there that possibility? Don't say that to her while she's in labor. Okay? Don't say, I'm all behind you, because you're the weaker vessel. She'll clop you a good one, rightfully so. Okay. Could he be talking about the physical makeup? Is there a structural difference between male and female? Come on. Okay, that's why this whole issue of men and women's sports is so stupid. Okay? There is a physical difference in bone structure, muscle tone. But does that mean every woman is weaker than every man? No. I remember playing flag football up at Camp Calvary with the teens. And Jean Bachman was there, and she was playing for the other team. And Jean and I were both going for the ball. I caught it. Man, she wiped me out. And I saw stars in the middle of the daytime. Yeah. There's ladies who are Amazons. Yes? Okay. So what other possibilities is he talking about here? If it's not just physically, some of you said he's talking emotionally. Are women weaker than men? You got to be careful, guys, what you say here, okay? Are women emotionally? They might be more emotionally driven, okay? Is there's three, I better get you out of trouble here. Let me stop asking the question. There's three different possibilities of interpreting this, okay? It could be a statement of fact. It could be a statement of fact that's saying ladies aren't normally as strong as the men. That's maybe what he's talking about. That's a possibility, and it would fit the text. It could be he's suggesting that you make this comparison. It's not a statement of fact, but you treat her as if she is weaker than you. Not necessarily is it always the case, but you treat her in that sense like just a comparative. It could be, I don't know whether a statement of extent. That is, you treat her as if she is a delicate vessel. Okay, how do you handle your everyday plates compared to how do you handle china? Anybody have china anymore? Dishes? No? Okay, got rid of them. We got rid of ours too. We still do?
If anybody wants.
Anybody want some china? Okay, years ago when we had china, okay, china was a thing, yes? Okay, did you serve it for use your china for breakfast? No, what did you use? Yeah, you know, the plasticware, things. You typically didn't feed the kid at the high chair with the china. Okay, so where did people used to put their china? Did you have a china? Any of you grew up with a china cabinet? Yes? No? Yeah, okay. And they would have the windows on it, and what are you doing with your china? You're showing off. China used to be, yeah, okay. And what'd you do with your plastic bowls? Did you put them in that same china cabinet? No, yes? Where'd you put it? In the cupboard that closed and nobody saw, okay. And he's saying, this is the way you should treat your wife. She is this something that you treasure, that you are, and she is a treasure. She's heir together with you with Christ. And so what he's talking about, and in the ways that we do this is, okay, how do I lift her up? By valuing her, I'd have to protect her. I would have to, protect from other people's comments, criticisms, okay? It means I would have to not treat her as one of the guys, okay? Yeah, remember how in junior high, what did we guys do to say hi to each other? Yeah. Not one of the guys. Don't expect her to be like her buddies. Should I tell our roofing story? Putting the ceiling up? Yeah, you tell it to everybody when you get a chance. So. I won't tell it. I'll just leave them hang. So we're redoing one of the bedrooms in the old house we were in. You were 8 months pregnant. I needed somebody to hold up the sheetrock while I was drilling it to the ceiling. So Alice Pietronudo and Deb were on the step ladders. I was on the other step ladder, and I'm going, you got to get it straighter. You got to get it tighter. Come on, ladies, get with it. My word, I didn't live that down for years and years and years and years and years. That was not, I was helping you to lift up. Okay, so we got here somewhere. Okay, this is treating her like a gentleman would treat. How does a gentleman treat a lady? What's that? Opening car doors? What's that? Courteously? Give them flowers. She hates flowers. She has allergies to them. Yes, I don't have to do the flowers. Tom, I was just saying, you didn't hear this. You didn't hear what he said, though. Did you hear what he said? Yeah, that's all he said. Give her flowers. Don't tell her the rest of what you said. He said, then give her coconut. She loves coconut. You're absolutely right, yeah. But it's not allowed in our house. Okay. You get it. Whenever somebody gives you a candy bar. Okay. So treating like a gentleman is the polite talk, the good manners, knowing her limits, not pushing too hard, elevating her with her speech, complimenting her, bragging on her, lifting up. Let's finish out here. Then he says, dwell with them according to knowledge. So you have this lifting up, you have this leading, you got this loving, but also live with. The word for dwell with her is more than have the same address. The word that he uses here for dwell has this idea of keep on abiding closely. Okay, it's the John 15 where he says, he that abides in me, it's not he that is saved. The word for abide is the same word as here. That it has the idea of that you are really tight. You are close together. Yeah, you're sharing the same confines, but you're really close together. And so that dwelling with her is abiding. You don't leave. You don't bail. Okay, and remember now, he's talking to a society that they had mistresses at times. And he's saying, you can't do this. And you know that. You understand that. But what he's talking about is the husband. This is the challenge of this text. The husbands are the one to keep the marriage going. In our culture, who do we usually put the responsibility of keeping it going on? The women. And this text says, husbands, you've got to keep on working to make sure that we're dwelling together, closely aligning yourself, abiding together. He's the one that's supposed to keep the harmony going in the home. And that's contrary to what most of us think like, is that it's the husband. He isn't supposed to get in the car, peel out of the driveway, and take off, and she has to beg him back. No, the husband's the one supposed to deal with it in addressing and solving the issues that would otherwise divide. So you got all these things, and then he asks this, dwell with them according to knowledge. You got to learn your wife. You got to learn her. Dwelling with knowledge is this idea that what you're doing is you're getting to know her better and better and better, knowing her goals, her battles, her fears. How do you do that? You got to talk. You got to communicate. We've talked about these things that requires communication. We've talked about paying attention and observing and studying her. Okay, so a survey was done. I got 1 minute. Survey was done at a Christian ladies conference years ago. And they asked the ladies, put these things in order. Which one of these are the ones that cause you the most angst and distress in your family relationships between you and your husband? Which ones here are those which create more of your frustrations, discouragement, and feelings of depression? And so they had the ladies put these together. Then they had the men do them. Do you think they had the same listing? No. What do you think would be the top ones that would bother ladies? Take your top 3. What do you have? Fatigue? Time pressure? You're not speaking by experience. Whoever said it. Okay, who said it? Okay, Jess, you're not speaking this by experience, I'm sure. No, but I thank you for your input on Kayla's part. Okay, that's not true. Any others that you'd say that the lady said this was the problems? Low self-esteem. Here's what they were, okay? Here's the way it went when they were done, when they finished it up. Aging was at the bottom, in-law conflicts, the physical changes, sexual problems, non-issue, financial struggles were way down. All of a sudden you get in the top 4, and these are the ladies are saying, this is where we're really struggling. Who has an impact on that? The husbands. The husbands in protecting, providing, loving, and saying, okay, there. And then you had the guys do the survey, and number 1 thing that the guys put down was, anyone want to guess? Nobody wants to say it. The sexual problems, is number 1 for the guys, which that's where most guys' brains are. So here's what we got. We got this conclusion that we say, okay, we've got to work on these areas. Now I want to close with this. Failure to working on these areas is really tragic. This text says it. This text says to us, if you aren't doing it, your prayers are hindered. This is a spiritual activity. It's just not your family relationship. This determines your closeness with the Lord. Work at it. Work at it.